What may be seen as just a game is so much more under the surface. Countless stories reveal aspects of human nature that will forever remain untold. Here on Philosophy, we will tell those stories. This is Philosophy, Video Game Philosophy. I am David Leibowitz, and time to get the spiel for your enlightenment. Game starts. Hello everyone, this is David Leibowitz with Philosophy, Video Game Philosophy, and I have a absolutely fantastic guest. Alim from the Thought Bubble community also has his own YouTube channel where he does awesome musical covers. He is a man of the musical theater, and he is a very smart guy. And also, definitely check out
I'll take the compliments.
I will give him all the compliments. and he's amazing at Pokemon. He's a lot of awesome things, and he's a great new friend of mine. And definitely check out Thought Bubble community as well. Again, that's a channel that does psychoanalysis of video game characters, like we've done in the past a little with Elfric, and then more in the case of Elfric. But John does it so much better, and that's how I met Alim, because I wanted to connect with that community, and I'm so happy I did, and I met this awesome individual. So, Alim, is there anything else you'd like to introduce yourself?
No, just thank you so much for the opportunity to be on here, and I'm super excited to get talking about Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia. I'm a huge fan of the Fire Emblem series, in addition to a lot of other strategy and turn-based RPGs, and I really think that many of the details within the game kind of lead themselves to important discussion in a real-world context, in addition to a fictional one. And
that's what we're all here for in Philosophy. Again, we are not just a philosophy channel. We just analyze games for their meaning, but always try to bring a philosophy to it, which we can, and it seems there might be here as well. As we discuss Nietzsche for Persona 5 Strikers, Nietzsche may or may not come up here as well. As I mentioned back then, I was researching Nietzsche for this episode, but was actually...
I mean, we do kill a god in the game.
You do kill a god. You do kill a god in both games, yes. Spoiler, but whatever, you know. You know. Either way, yeah, you kill...
I mean, if you're playing a Fire Emblem game and you're not killing a god, are you really playing a Fire Emblem game? It's either a god or a dragon that you're killing at the end.
Azure Moon? Okay.
I mean... Yeah, you're right.
That's why it's Azure Moon's amazing. That's why Azure Moon...
That's 100% why it's the most fun route, of course. It's simultaneously the most Fire Emblem ever gets, and also it deviates from the patterns in a lot of ways. Anyway, that's topic for discussion.
A different time. We did also do Three Houses, but I've been told that it could possibly be revisited again. But yes, so basically, definitely in Fire Emblem's lore, it was, I can't speak for Awakening, but it sent like. It hit an all-time low with Fates. That's why we said why Three Houses was better than Fates, because it does a lot of things better than Fates. But a lot of the good narrative elements, especially full voice acting, which goes complete voice acting in Three Houses, a lot of the gameplay elements came from Echoes, including being able to control your character outside the battlefield. Yeah. For Echoes, it's the dungeon.
Combat arts,
the way magic goes, a lot of stuff is thankful to Echoes. The problem is the gameplay itself is very faithful, and there's a lot of times we did not enjoy, but the story I felt very satisfying, and it does something very interesting with the two different paths, which happens, I believe, in other games, but like you stay with the two different paths throughout the whole game until the end.
I will say, if Echoes wasn't an open map Fire Emblem from a gameplay perspective, just from that. I do believe that it could have been one of my personal favorites, because the challenge could have been designed a lot more around the level that you were at. It kind of felt like it was forced to mix in some Awakening elements into the original Gaiden, and honestly, different topic. But yeah, you're completely right about how the story really speaks to it. And honestly, it's one of the reasons why Echoes is one of my top 5 favorite Fire Emblems, behind a couple of Vitellius games, Gudregal, and Three Houses.
Yeah. So, exactly. So, seeing how Fire Emblem truly hit its narrative, was able to tell a narratively satisfying game through the 3DS presentation with the voice acting, let's go into why this game, what it has to offer. So, let's probably start,
Sure.
Should we give a little rundown of just the basic idea of the story? Of the basic?
Sure, so the story kind of works like this. There are 2 halves. There's the Alm half and the Celica half. To TLDR it quickly for you, Alm is the son of a Regalian king, although he doesn't know that, and is raised by that Regalian king's best friend in the area of Mila's land down to the south. Why am I forgetting the name? Zofia, thank you. Thank you. He's raised with Celica, who's the princess of Zofia, under, again, this man. And eventually, there ends up coming a time where there's a war between Regel and Zofia, and Alm's duty, as somebody who he thinks was born in Zofia as a peasant, is to rise up and protect his homeland against his father, who he does not, at that point in time, know as his father, King Rudolph. Meanwhile, Celica's journey takes her on a more religious and spiritual path as she tries to understand exactly what's going on with the god Duma, why exactly this war is even taking place in the first place, why the land is starting to have issues, and she's kind of trying to solve the deeper issues behind all of this conflict, rather than the actual conflict itself.
While still murdering
which
a lot
honestly
of people.
makes her one of the more interesting.
Oh
yeah, definitely, but she mostly murders pirates and zombies. Again, she murders pirates, zombies, and Duma Faithful. Like, those are her main opponents, and witches, I guess. You could also sidetrack and take down Nui Baba, but... or not Nui Baba, I think that's on Alm's route, but you could take down the witch on Celica's route. But
that's
yeah.
Duma Faithful. A witch is Duma Faithful, so...
Yeah, I just don't remember which particular one it was.
There's a moment...
But not especially important.
There is that Mr. Eye Patch guy, or whatever, like you and Sonia and the other guy. But I think they were, like, enlisted.
Yeah, I always recruit Sonia. Dean is... Why would I want a 4th Dreadfighter?
Dean, I know, this is me being a noob, but Dean kicked ass for me. Dean was my boy, but that was my...
I mean, he's strong. From a gameplay perspective, Dean is way stronger. But the thing is, Sonia actually has a real connection to the story. Yeah. And we'll get into that when we get into Faith, which is a topic that we'll get to in a bit. But for now, I think we should shift back to Alm's story for a second and talk a little bit about that element of class struggle.
Yeah, in truth, I went in blind and I went after Sonia, not knowing that you recruit Dean in the process. So that's why I got Dean, but I was fine with it. So that was just me going in blind.
I mean, yeah, they're both fun characters.
Either way, class struggle.
I hope I don't start a war by saying that Sony's better.
I think the most of the fan base agrees though, but I think the fan base.
Yeah, probably.
But Dean was my Dreadfighter. Was the only one that went after Dreadfighter. Either way, for all you people who only care about philosophy, let's get back to philosophy. So, class struggle. The thing I will give the positive. How about I start with the positive argument for why it's what it's trying to do, and Alim's gonna break it all to shreds. So, basically, class struggle. So the whole deal is, we start with the land. We have 2 different lands again. We have Zofia and Regel. Regel is sort of like, you could say, there's another game again in Fates where you have a more prosperous land and a more harsher land, and the harsher land seemingly wants to eventually take over the prosperous land. But this all happens because, well, King Lima IV was an asshole and was a dick to his people. He was a dick to his people, and he died somehow. I actually forgot exactly what happened, but he's dead. And so Sophia is without a royal family, so and then there's a whole struggle between Fernand and Clyde. Fernand being a new character in the games. I feel like we forgot to say that this is a remake of the 2nd game in this series, so that's important. Fernand being a new character.
We did, but
we didn't emphasize it. This is the.
It's not that important.
It's not that important, but yeah, okay.
God, Gaiden's story was so bad.
Wait,
Jeez,
so,
like, this is such an improvement.
Wait, all the Fine, let's just talk about it on the basis of the remake then. Okay, let's keep it on the basis of the remake then. I guess this for someone who hasn't played Gaiden, thinking that Gaiden's story was good. Okay, back to just saying that this treating it as its own game. So Fernand basically is a dick as well, and is like, why do you sign with peasants? And yeets off to Rigel to join Berkut, who is also a new character.
Well, hold on, he's a little bit more complex than that. I am going to interrupt you.
Have the right to interrupt
and say that there is a
there is a DLC thing where you get to play as Fernand. That is true, and I played it. But you can speak more about that.
Yeah, so in that, you actually see that Fernand's concept of nobility is quite similar to Clyde's as to what nobility should do for its people. The noble's job, in his mind, is to provide for the peasants on their land, and to make sure that they're well fed, that they're happy, and that they're able to live the kind of lives that they want. In other words, the noble's job is to take on the duty of ensuring that the peasants are able to live the way that they are able to, which obviously does reek of privilege to an extent, given the fact that, hey, rich person saying that they're struggling so much to make sure that the poor person can be where they are. Ooh, wow. But at the same time, it is a better idea and a more noble concept than what he ends up coming to during the main story. His main reasons for changing his outlook are trauma, but it's kind of like the movie Cruella, where, spoiler alert if you haven't seen Cruella,
great!
This happens in the first 5 minutes. This happens in the first 5 minutes, so it's not that much of a spoiler.
It's a great movie. I'm glad he saw it. I just learned he saw this movie. Continue.
And I wasn't a fan, by the way. David is going to crucify me for that one, but nevertheless, at the very beginning of the movie, this is the thing that actually kind of made me check out. Cruella's mom just gets killed by Dalmatians, which is, like, the stupidest thing. But it's kind of the same thing. Like, that's the same motivation that you gave to the doll in the troll in Trolls who wouldn't sing. Singing killed my grandma! And the same motivation that Fernand has. The peasants killed my family. And as a result, all three of these characters just absolutely hate the thing that they blame for that.
It could still be done well, though, and Fernand's still a good character, especially at the end, when...
Oh, I'm not denying that. Honestly, he's probably the best implementation of that out of the three. But at the same time, I would not say that it's an especially deep reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just, okay.
Still, I just interrupted.
Either way, so basically, Sophia ain't the land of rainbows and honey, of milk and honey. Well, it is, but it's also not. It's more prosperous than Rigel, but there's, you could say, just intense income inequality. As any medieval land is, this is not the Happydale land of Happydale medieval land. I don't even know if that ever exists. I feel like there's always peasants in every, but sometimes there's Happydale medieval times. But yeah, no, so the king's an asshole, okay? And Celica, of course, is not. Celica is not an asshole. But, so, then where this gets, so the whole point then is that there's a conflict about Alm being the leader, and Clyde saying yes, Fernand says no, Fernand eats off, and Alm, not knowing that he's the ruler, goes off and fights, and Berkut, a new character who is very much stylized after the Roman of Roman emperors with the frickin' things, and having a very Romanesque theme, though everything is like Latin rappers. So, but it goes.
Everybody
we
loves
love
Berkut.
He's amazing. And basically, Alm is able to best Berkut after and after, until Berkut finds out Alm is the prince, and they have a sissy fight for who's gonna be next in line, and that's where Alim is gonna say everything falls to shit.
Alright, so I think what you need to do if you're going to address the core issues with Alm's storyline is look at the structure of Shadows of Valentia in terms of the chapters and when events take place. So you start off with the prologue, you're just a village kid, right? And you're in this mindset that you're kind of this poor kid, although your grandpa is somebody who's famous, General Meissen, you're just kind of this kind of person, right? Act 1, Zophia's Call, you similarly still take up the position of being this kind of country bumpkin of sorts. Act 3 is where things fall apart, because, like, 2 levels into Act 3, you end up finding the royal sword, and only Alm can wield it. Immediately that establishes 2 things. Number 1, there is a clear and visible benefit to being a royal, or a person of noble birth in this land. You are literally able to wield a weapon that is more powerful than any other weapon in the game, and that nobody else can wield. The weapon that ends up slaying Duma in the end, by the way, and the weapon that allows you to do that, if any other character tries it, they fail and Duma heals himself. But only Alm, only a person of royal blood, can do this. Which kinda goes against the themes of the game in that sense, right? And then the second thing that kind of ruins this is that his relationship with Meissen is the reason he's even given the position in the Deliverance in the first place. When it comes to the Deliverance's army, they are a ragtag bunch of nobles. You've got, prior to the joining of Alm, you've got, the heads are Matilda, Fernand, and Clive, all of whom are nobles. You've also got Claire, who is one of the top soldiers, and you've got the other 2, Python and I believe Lila.
Claire is also Claire is literally just rarity. Okay, she's Princess McPrincess. She's a noble as well.
Yeah, she's 100% noble. But the other 2 remaining are actually
Python
commoners.
And Forsyth.
And Lucas, who is a noble,
Python
but
and Forsyth.
Python and Forsyth. Yes, Forsyth died so early on in my playthrough, I literally forgot his name.
Benefits for playing casual.
You know.
But,
take that for what you will. I didn't grind at all, by the way. I avoided enemies and all that, so Forsyth was just under-leveled and a worse Lucas for me.
He really is just a worse Lucas, though, but yeah.
What ended up happening then, therefore, is that you're having this group of nobodies join this group, and that's the reason Fernand leaves, because Fernand believes that Deliverance is supposed to be a noble group built on the ideas of nobility, and adding in these peasants, in his mind, even if one is raised by Sir Meissen, is a recipe for disaster. Meanwhile, Clive thinks, aha, Sir Meissen's grandson, he should still be good. We're still putting him in charge. Because, guess what? Sir Meissen, despite being born a commoner, is seen as somebody who is of noble status, right? By a lot of folks. Not everybody, but by a lot of folks. And he actually begins to question Alm when he discovers in Chapter 3 that no, Sir Meissen really isn't Alm's grandpa. Like, he isn't really blood related to Sir Meissen. And that leads to an internal conflict with the Deliverance. This is not a situation...
Chapter 3, like the 3/5 of the game, right?
War of Deliverance.
Right.
War of Deliverance is what the chapter is called. It's after the first Celica portion.
Isn't it Act 3?
I guess it would be called Act... No, actually, I think that's... Yeah, you're right, Act 3. Act 3.
It's a play!
But...
Okay.
Fair enough. More of a Shakespearean tragedy. It's not following a traditional 3-act structure.
It's 5-part Shakespeare,
but...
exactly. Which it is a Shakespearean tragedy, based. We could talk... It's a Shakespearean...
I mean, yeah, he literally kills his dad, right? Spoilers, by the way. But,
He's already said that.
Yeah. The whole idea is that Alm is given this position due to a factor of his birth, or at least a factor perceived of his birth. When he finds out that he's actually of an even higher status, they stop questioning him. And he ends up becoming somebody who, because of his higher status, is able to do something that nobody else would have been able to had they not had that same status. As a result, the message of class struggle, while definitely well portrayed in many respects, especially in regards to the overall conflict between Rigel and Zofia, falls apart on a micro-character level. Additionally, let's actually look at that conflict of Rigel and Zofia in a little bit more detail. Rigel is a land that, yes, it doesn't have that many resources, and Zofia is a land that does, and Zofia, as you said, the king is corrupt. But let's take a look at, and this will start to transition us into our discussion of faith a little bit. Let's take a look at the gods of Zofia and of Miguel, and kind of see how they fit into this class struggle.
Mila is goodness, Miss Goodness.
Mila, exactly. Although, it is important to note that she did kind of side with her brother for killing a bunch of innocent people that one time. And
she is stubborn. And she is stubborn sometimes, but like she mirrors Celica like that.
Yeah, she is 100% the mirror of Celica, and I think that's, by the way, one of the main thematic parallels that the game wants to make. Celica is supposed to be similar to Mila, and is supposed to be similar to Duma. But something interesting to note is that it's Duma and Mila's personalities that lead to Miguel and Zofia becoming in the state that they are. Duma was a warlike god. He was very powerful, and he thought might meant right. Zofia, meanwhile, was ruled by Mila, who was more of a god of the earth, more of this kind of bounty idea that the ground will provide, right? Whereas Miguel was born from a conqueror god. Zofia was born from an agricultural god. And as a result of that, both of them developed widely different cultures and circumstances, and those things, I believe, led to the war. And I don't necessarily think that, and this is another reason why the class struggle argument falls apart, I don't think this is a great representation because Miguel are clearly the aggressors and are clearly in the wrong, when in reality, class struggle is a lot more complicated than good guys and bad guys. And I think overall, that's what this simplifies down to. The main flaw with the theme of class struggle in Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia is that it nails down the ideas of class struggle, but fails to understand why they're important and their place in the real world, as well as fails to represent them adequately. And as a result, comes across as one-sided.
But it's at least not as one-sided as Fire Emblem Fates, even though you get to actually see the Norians.
Oh boy! Do you want me to talk about Fire Emblem Fates? Because I can talk about Fire Emblem Fates. That's a whole other discussion
if we want to, but again, only if we actually find something good to talk about. That's why if there's actually something.
Okay, then I'll just make my comment. When it comes to Fates, specifically Fates Conquest, the key issue with its depiction versus that of Echoes is that Conquest tries to do the same thing. It tries to have the idea that Nor is a barren land where there isn't really any ability to grow food, and there's that whole chapter where the nobles from both sides actually end up coming together to discuss some things, right?
I haven't really fully still seen this story. I've only really played through both ways, but continue.
Fair enough. I played Conquest first. Lunatic Conquest was my first ever Fire Emblem game. Classic mode, so... I actually finished Conquest before I finished Revelation. So, technically I played Revelation first, but I finished Conquest first. Final chapter of Revelations, I had very few characters remaining, so I was kind of just... But anyway, when it came to that portion of it, there was a kind of a discussion and attempt to be made. But I would actually say that there is one thing that Fates does better in this regard, and it's that it doesn't actually contradict this theme. Well, yes, it does simplify the story, and Garen is clearly the bad guy. He is literally the worst human being to ever walk the face of the planet. And yes, clearly Hoshido are the good guys. Still, it doesn't end up putting Korin in a position where he ever argues for one thing while being a hypocrite.
I thought the whole point is he's trying to make peace through.
Yeah, he's trying to do what's right.
He's trying to make peace through the conquest. Well, that's the whole point, and that's why he's whiny, and that's why he comes off as really freaking bad in that story. But
oh, trust me, Conquest Korin has so many problems, but fortunately hypocrisy is not one of them. Until you get to the killing aspect, but that's a completely different area. When it comes to class struggle, at least, he's consistent.
Oh.
Hypocrisy, he does kind of basically try to spare his enemies in pretty much every single chapter, and not non-lethally deal with them. But at the same time, in so doing, he leads to the deaths of so many. So... We'll get to Fates another day.
Alright then. So I think now we go on to, so clearly, the best thing was, again, what could have been was Alim versus Berkut, but let's go to faith versus ideals. The big thing that everyone talks about, so I don't want to spend too much time on it, I want to talk about gods. But we gotta talk about faith versus ideals and see if we can put our own spin on it. Because Gast and I think other people have really talked about this, about the dichotomy between Alim and Celica very well. But do you want to start again, continue with faith versus ideals, and see where we go?
Oh yeah, definitely. I'll just start it off, and I'll give you a bit of a prompt here. When it comes to Alim and Celica, and the theme of faiths versus ideals, what do you think the key difference is between how they decide to attack the problems that they see on the continent?
We already talked about this. Alim faces it head on, while Celica tries to do things diplomatically while murdering evil people. And tries to goes to basically Alim goes to war, Celica goes to church while fighting demons. That's what happens.
You know what? I respect that line and I like it, but I will say that I'd say that it's a little bit more nuanced.
It's definitely. And again, I love Celica, and I hate the people who shit on Celica. I think Celica's great. I think Gast did a fantastic job defending her, and we're not going to spend all this time defending her, especially that scene. That scene. Well, we're going to talk about it, but we're not going to put. We'll see. But yeah, continue. You go.
All right. So, when it comes to these two characters, what they end up learning is that they should not just follow that one thing. Faiths and ideals, as a theme, is strong because there's no one right answer. Compared to class struggle, where you have the deliverance are the good guys, Regel is the bad guys, done. And villagers good, nobles bad, done. And then you start adding in, but Alim is a noble, and so noble's actually good, Duma bad, God bad. And God is the one who has all the power instead. Class struggle theme, messy. It just doesn't understand how to create a complex story. Faith and ideals, however, they do a great job with that. The faith and the ideals, simply put, lead both heroes on their paths, and lead to their own inevitable destructions. For Alim, through the death of Emperor Rudolph, and for Celica, through her capture. Both of them end up following their own paths. And it's only when they realize the value of the other one's ideals, or the other one's ideas, that Alim realizes the importance of faith, and Celica realizes the importance of ideals. That they're able to rejoin the two paths and end up together at the tower. It's
kind of like what Fates was. Okay, it seems, I thought Three Houses was I feel like I brought it Fates more often than the Fates, what was supposed to be the Fates bashing episode. But I guess we're gonna do some more Fates bash.
Again!
Fates was supposed to be yin and yang. Fates was supposed to be yin and yang, but it doesn't do it right. This is yin and yang. This is yin and yang. Right here. It's
You're making me defend Fates, and that's a position I don't like. Let's just ignore
Fates. This is definitely a yin and yang about why both opposites are needed. Why both opposites are needed. That it's clearly that the religiosity of both Celica going too far, the religiosity of the Duma faithful goes too far, and the ideals, you could say, the ideals of Berkut and the nobles, Berkut and the nobles in Fernand in the power of nobility.
Not just in the power of nobility, but also in the idea that might make sense.
Exactly. So clearly, there's a golden. I guess we talked about this, and this is a class I actually did just take, and so we can talk about Aristotle. What needs to be found?
Follow the golden mean.
The golden mean. Basically, what we need to find throughout the story is achieving the sense of a golden mean, and the amount of allusions to Rome is, obviously Aristotle is Greek, but to Greek/Rome. Oh, we're not done with that. There's gonna be more. That's my big argument. Actually, I think Greek and Rome.
I am waiting for it and ready
Exactly.
for it.
But to Aristotle and this idea of this golden mean, exactly that Alm and Celica bring the good side of faith and ideals, but they still do it too much. There's still a sense of excess. Aristotle would still see Berkut's ideals and the Doom of Faithful's faith as extremely on the wrong side, but both still are going.
I will say, however, that is why, from a writing perspective, they make such compelling antagonists for each individual route. I'm sorry.
No, that was a perfect point. That's exactly why they make propelling. You can butt in as much as you want as well. You can butt in as much as you want. So that's exactly it. Ideal. Basically, the thing is that's basically it. Alm constantly. Let's do the scenes I just watched right beforehand. The key discussions between Alm and Celica. So we have the opening scene where they talk about we'll get to the Duma and Mila were brother sister, and they're like, we should never come apart. Go to the end of Act 2, see the reunion. You see them fight. Alm doesn't know Celica is the princess. Celica doesn't know Alm is the prince, and they're like, why are you doing this? Well, Alm is not a shit. Alm doesn't really know that. Alm doesn't really. Actually, I think Celica says as she's leaving, I'm going to Mila. But she basically says, but like, why are you doing this? How about you become king? Basically, right there's so much foreshadowing in that one scene about them arguing, and you seeing the clear disconnect between them. The next time they speak is when it's right before, apparently, I believe, Celica is about to go to the Duma Tower, and she goes, I believe, through the forest. That was annoying as hell. Actually, it wasn't that annoying, but it was. I'm going through that forest and she goes to see the priest Halcyon, who allows her for a second to use the force to send a projection of herself to Alm. And they have a talk, and Alm's like, yeah, I realize you're the princess, and they're like, and she's like, I have to go to Mila, and Alm is like, I have to go, and they seem a lot more at peace with what they're doing. And it's like, just be safe. And of course, then exactly what happens. I want to use Greek tragedies happen. Alm kills his father, like Oedipus, and Celica. I don't know if there's I don't think Medea is a good connection. It's not at all. So she does something. Maybe some Greek tragedy happens, and she becomes a witch. Well, because she becomes a witch like Medea, but Medea was always a witch. So. Yeah, that happens, and they go down their excess. And then, well, the power of love happens, and they're able to unite. And I guess you want to take over about the moments when the power of friendship happens. Even though it's
I think, actually, that's a good transition point, though, into gods in a way. Because that point is where I believe Mila actually really dies there. In order to give Celica life, right? And that whole period where Alm and Celica fight and the royal sword stabs her and allows her to come back, that whole thing, I think is really a good indication of the difference in philosophies between the two gods. So I will want to come back to this point later. For now, however, I'll come back to faiths and ideals and kind of discuss how it's related to that. Simply put, Alm in that moment had to trust, had to have faith, in order for it to go through. Now, Celica was a mind-wiped zombie at that point in time, kind of a witch, so she couldn't really have any ideals. She didn't really get to fulfill it in that particular moment, her ideals, but rather, her fulfillment of her ideals came when she went to slaughter Duma. Remember, she was originally willing to accept what Jeddah said, and her choosing to go with Alm and work with Alm after she comes back is, and probably the ultimate example you can give of somebody following their ideals. Even though, by the way, Duma is a god, and is somebody who is revered as such, is somebody who many are faithful to, and is somebody who, is powerful in that sense. She still fights
He's
it.
gone insane. That's the whole point. He's gone insane.
Right.
And his battle name is Fell God Duma, so he's fallen. He's fallen. But
To be fair, when it comes to Fell Gods, that does depend on who you're asking, especially considering the fact that we do know Sothis was called, quote, Fellstar, unquote, in
This
Three
is
Houses. Despite the fact that, you know, she is 100% sane, at least when we see her.
She is definitely sane. She's a little tricky, she's a little trickster, but she's sane. Yeah.
She's like a wood nymph.
She's wonderful. We love Cassandra Lee Morris did a fantastic job, and I guess she I don't think I've seen her once talk about the character because she's literally just 100% spoilers, even more than Rhea. Like, she's just spoiler. So, but
I am a huge fan of literally all of the Three Houses voice cast.
exactly. And Robbie Damon did a like him and like was it?
Oh, Robbie Damon always kills it. Between Akechi and this, he's just the go-to guy a lot of the time.
And I got introduced to him in playing it. My introduction to Robbie Damon was the very sane Tobin. Was the very sane. Well, I mean, she was also sane, but like the very normal Tobin. But yeah, and
right.
Tobin's kind of Mr. Bland. That's usually not Robbie Damon's character. He's not Mr. Bland, but yeah. Or is there any? No, Tobin's just a good guy. He's just a good kid. Either way.
Actually, I completely forgot to mention the villagers.
Exactly, the villager. Bring them up. Come on.
Yeah. So this is the main counter argument to my position. But the villagers exist.
Exactly.
3 points here. Number 1, the villagers back in Gaiden, the original game, and I know that Echoes is very different, but I am bringing this up for a purpose. The villagers in the original game served only as units to fill out your party, they did not serve as characters. Number 2, when it comes to the interactions between the villagers and the rest of the Deliverance, you can see that they are still looked down upon by those of noble birth. The most clear example is between Claire and Grey. And yet, despite that, they end up becoming some of the most formidable fighters in your army, they're the only ones able to reclass, and in fact the Pitchfork DLC item allows you to turn those nobles into villagers, which, surprise surprise, makes them a lot better a lot of the time. God, using Dread Fighter Lucas was so fun. But, my point is that, yeah, you can argue that the villagers' existence is, in and of itself, a message about class struggle, that, hey, those who are looked down upon can still have power, can still do this. But at the end of the day, is there ever a moment where any of the villagers make a significant impact on the story, where they're able to do anything at all, to impact the direction that the story goes? I'd argue that the only characters who are able to do that are those of noble birth.
Yeah, so that's that. I guess, so any last points on Faith vs. Ideals, or do you think we've said enough about it? Because I don't think we've really gone that in depth, but I think we did the just right tip of it.
I think it's not really that deep of a topic in that sense, because it is pretty... There's not really much to criticize about it. There's just stating what it is and kind of explaining the background behind it, which I think we did.
Now back to more, but yeah, we brought up Golden Me, and that was good. Now time for some maybe Nietzsche, maybe not. Probably not the Nietzsche that you think, but who wants to start, me or you, in this one?
I'll leave this one to you, pal.
Right. So, the big deal that ends up being the big thing is the fact that the final theme of the game is known as Twilight of the Gods, and it is fantastic. A fantastic theme. We might recount the lyrics. I believe I will read some of the lyrics when it become relevant. But basically, the whole point is, this is a kingdom that is both sides have been reliant on their gods. Sophia has become barren, and they name that with Duma dies, they become barren as well. But of course, as it happens, everything is perfectly fine. We don't need the gods. It's sort of like Mila's like, it will always be in your heart, and Duma's kind of insane, so it's fine. But basically, Duma's probably in Alm's heart anyway. But I mean, Duma kind of ends up being like chill, like, okay, fine. It's up to you now. Whatever. So I was talking about Greece. So I guess I should start with now analyzing the initial what I thought we could talk about. Nietzsche. So as we noted about in Persona 5 Strikers, Nietzsche's whole philosophy is that God is dead. And what happens? God dies. Both gods die. But the whole point behind Nietzsche is that the gods die because of science. There is no science to be found. Like, sometimes, like in in Three Houses, in some other games, there is some form of technology. Even if it's magically powered, like the golems. But here, nothing. Actually, there's nothing. So, what then is it talking about? Alim did have an idea about where Nietzsche might actually take about, and I know what it is, but I'm not going to get there yet. So, what is it talking about? Here, as Alim said, it might actually relate to, so then put a few things. One, putting instead of the noble and peasant struggle onto people and gods. So saying, now we need to take our power from the gods and all of that. But again, Mila's presented as good, though stubborn. But the thing is that, to me, there's one thing that kind of feels like, even though they're perfectly fine, this kind of feels like, not completely, but sort of a tree of knowledge, flame of Prometheus, even in the most unintentional way, because what it sounds like is, things are going to be better without these gods, without this sense of reliance on a higher power. So even if, yes, the nobles are going to remain in charge and all that, we're not going to have Edelgard's No Nobles Empire where we kill Rhea. That's not happening. But we are having at least some sort of prosperous society where villagers, it seems like, even though nobility stays in charge, villagers are likely going to get more, at least going to have some more chance. And you could say that change is a little bit more gradual, as we talked about in Fallout. Change, with I guess the possibility that the NRC, that the NCR might be the right thing to go with, and just wait for it to change gradually. That idea. So if change is gradual, then maybe eventually we'll get that democratic society. Who knows? This is still.
When you were Team Mr. House for your first playthrough?
We did Mr. House for our first play. Yes. We did Mr. House. We did Mr. House. Well, I didn't play personally, but we decided to do Mr. House. Either way, back on, yes, you can see now all these philosophical topics are coming together. This is the beauty of Philosopher's Spiel. Spoiling a lot of games right now, but whatever.
You know what? I don't think it's that much of a spoiler that Mr. House exists and you can help him in some way, shape, or form. It's
more spoiling my other Philosopher's Spiel and talking about Edelgard, but everyone knows Edelgard's sequel. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
No, Mr. House is not spoil.
Spoiler alert, then. Posthumous spoiler alert.
But either way, with basically, in the sense of it being, let's say, a sense maybe of Persona, a sense of unintentional gnosis. A sense of gaining something that you've lost. Like, there's a few ways to think about this. There's a way to say, as it's said in the song, like, I think you could have definitely a juxtaposition between the translated lyrics of Twilight of the Gods to Heritors of Arcadia. The song Heritors of Arcadia is a new edition because I don't know if I believe there actually might have been some songs on, like, really old consoles. I think the Psycho Soldier might have been an old one, but usually they're not. So, oh yeah, Sonic Goes Fast was on the, yes, okay, so there is that, but that's CD. So, basically, the song speaks about how seasons will turn, that things will change, and things will be fine. That the idea is that, but it does kind of seem like that for certain, as there is giant change in the Empire, there is this change that is needed to happen for the people, and that, in a sense, is sort of like seizing the flames of Prometheus by Ulm taking the sword of the falchion that was meant that Mila did stubbornly keep away because she did love her brother. It's all an unintentional therapy session for the people of Sophia and Rigel.
I will have to stop you there, though. One thing that kind of stuck out to me when I was reading through the lyrics of the Heritors of Arcadia was that the analogy used when they talk about change is the season change, which is a very gradual sort of process.
Exactly as I said.
So I 100% have to agree with you there, that this is not a immediate shift, but rather a changing process that is more so meant to reflect growth.
You could say the change of how civilization progresses in general. But of course,
yeah,
I know we weren't going to talk about Awakening, but how is Valm? How is Valm in it's not good, is it? How is Valm in Awakening?
It is... Okay, so here's the deal. When we play through Awakening the first time, Valm is basically seen as these really bad guys who are trying to conquer everywhere, right? It's later revealed, however, in a twist that's basically literally just a worse version of the twist in this game with King Rudolph, that the Emperor of Valm is actually trying to save the world from Grima. Now, let's not get too much into that, but TLDR, there is this whole discussion as to whether or not that was right. And honestly, the Valm saga in Awakening was mostly done for fans of the original Gaiden, since Gaiden really hadn't seen that much representation up until that point. The closest thing it had seen to representation was a couple things in Sacred Stones in terms of mechanics.
And with Mila's Divine Pretension being a bop for a lot of people in Smash Bros. Brawl. But people didn't even...
Oh, 100%, but that's outside of Fire Emblem.
What's that game from? What's that song from? Basically, continue. Yeah.
But yeah, that's from a series outside of Fire Emblem, although basically at this point, with all the DLC fighters and Byleth and Corrin and all that, Smash is just another Fire Emblem game. But I
love it!
Womp womp.
I like Byleth! Okay.
But seriously, though. Let's get back to the topic of the season change, because there's another...
Did it get better? Well, I mean, it seems like it did, so...
There is one kind of crucial thing that I think kind of ties in the Awakening point that you're making. Seasons are cyclical. They go back and forth around... It'll be spring and it'll be summer. But eventually it will be fall and the winter will come. We will be a Game of Thrones. And then even in the darkest hour in the winter, spring is coming. And then summer, glorious summer, before the leaves start to fall and the dread starts to set in once more. Do you see what I mean? The whole nature of the continent under Mila, under Zophia's rule, is one which is completely stagnant. And comparatively, let's look at Rigel. Rigel is a land which is supposed to be this evil entity, and is very warlike, but at the same time, you see that there's a lot of progress that takes place in their society. They do have that whole idea that might makes right after all, and while they do have nobles who are snobby and in charge, and you don't really get to see all that many peasants, that philosophy of might makes right has led to many different people in a meritocratic system rising up the ranks and becoming exactly who they could be. Let's look at, for example, Napoleon in the 1800s, or if we want to look at the Sengoku Jidai period in Japan, we could look at Tomatoyo Hideyoshi, who was originally a sandal bearer for Nobunaga and eventually became the ruler, one of the three united rulers of Japan.
Mr. Ono's favorite subject in Persona 3. That's all I remember. I don't remember paying attention to any. There is a class, when we get to Persona 3, there will be a class, there is one specific teacher that I believe needs some discussion, but I couldn't really pay attention to Mr. Ono. But yeah, so I'm learning this new stuff. But exactly, is that, and also Tatiana and Zeke, Tatiana's pretty cool. She's Regalian.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with you on that. But the thing is that this actually does go back to faith and ideals, and I'm sorry for not bringing this up earlier, because this kind of ties into both themes. It's like poetry. It rhymes, said George
Hegel.
Lucas. But
Hegel.
the thing is,
Continue.
yeah, the whole idea here is that there's no one solution. You can't just be all war or all peace. You have to find that golden mean, right?
Yin and yang. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think the whole idea of gods, of class struggle, of fates and ideals, I think that really, if you wanted to boil down the entirety of Shadows of Valentia into one sentence, it would be, follow the golden mean, that's how you choose to live!
Yes.
You know?
Yep. Yep. I guess, what else do we want to talk about?
Sorry.
Is that a song? Is that actually a song?
Actually, it's an excerpt from Twisted, which is a musical done by Star Kid. And the song is actually called Follow the Golden Rule, but, you know, Aristotle.
Either way, I think so. Basically, yeah, Nietzsche. But I guess we should maybe get to Nietzsche at least about the suffering. Should we? I mean, how that might.
Right. I think that goes more to Twilight of the Gods than the Heritors of Arcadia. So, you want to cover that?
Right, the lyrics. Where is my oh, it turned up. Gonna.
Don't worry, I've got them open as well. I'll just read out the first couple.
Read. It gets no. Quickly read through it. Or yeah, go.
You give us sorrow because of our raged war. Nothing to eat because of our resource. We want you because of our raged war. Called to get wishes because of our sorrow. Because of, down to the end, from among. You give us sorrow because of the waged war. I want you to give because of the people. Teach me all they've done, so glory will never stop or unite for us in our fate. We will not rest. We will survive. Even in the end, we will not flee. Please. You've already won and swung the teeth, so heaven won it. And we have won and sung the miracles to par. You give us sorrow because of, we want you because of, the waged war, yes. We will not rest, we will survive. In the heart we will not fret. We will not rest, we will not survive. We will not rest, we will survive, excuse me. Duma protects us.
Alright. So, clearly this sounds like fanatics. They sound like absolute crazy people.
Duh.
And they are. So, why are they, so I guess why are they wrong and how does this relate to, so tell me how that relates to Nietzsche, in your opinion. Or, I get...
So, I think one of the things...
No, go,
Sorry.
yeah, you go. I feel like this still does have...
I've been talking a lot.
No, it's fine. I feel like this still does relate to God somehow, I mean, with Nietzsche. In a little bit, you could say. But, so you know, tell me your point.
They're very reliant on... Like, in the lyrics, they basically say that their war has led to their lack of resources, and that they're kind of reliant on Duma, but at the same time, that they will fight to survive. Children. That they will do what needs to be done to live. They will struggle. And the idea of struggle, not class struggle in this particular case, but struggle in general, I think is very key to the idea of Nietzsche. And I think that you actually touched on this in your... Nietzsche, excuse me. And I think you touched on this on your Persona 5 Strike Race podcast, right?
Did you listen to that?
I will neither confirm nor deny.
Suffering is...
I like being mysterious, that way I don't have to...
You need suffering to live, that's what Nietzsche says, and that's what Stryker says. Okay.
And that's the philosophy of the Regelian people.
But they take it to an extreme. Again, golden mean.
Exactly. Golden mean.
Yes.
Meanwhile, Mila's whole idea is that change needs to happen, but it should be gradual and cyclical. So really, there's no real change in Mila's philosophy. No matter how much we look at Heritors of Arcadia, it says change needs to happen, but it really doesn't facilitate it. It's saying, here, I'll give you everything you need. Have fun. And as time passes, you will learn, but then you will unlearn as time passes as well. So really, there's the idea of ignorance and of complete peace versus discord, conquest, struggle, and fighting and war. And there's a golden mean between the two.
Alright.
There's the idea of faith in Mila. in who she is and what she gives to the land. And there's the idea of ideals. You stake your claim, you have your strength, and you fight for what you believe in. And again, golden mean. This whole game is the golden mean.
Yeah. And I would say, so yeah, it seems like, so, in a sense, it is like what Kaisar says about the Hegelian dialects, that there will be a synthesis and antithesis. And honestly, in a sense, you could say the fight between Rigel and Zofia is the synthesis and the antithesis coming together. And you get a good society eventually, but then, as Hegel says, it will go back. Am I right?
Yeah, I'd actually agree with you, at least in terms of if one of them wins. And that, I think, is where the ending really becomes important, because, spoiler alert, even if
we're
we have
spoiling the whole
already,
game. We're spoiling the whole game. We spoiled it from the start, basically. So
I just like saying spoiler alert for the
Okay.
memes, I guess. But anyway, they both gods end up dead. Both philosophies are rejected.
it's a Greek/Shakespearean tragedy.
Both. I would argue that the tragedy happens right beforehand. The tragedy is right before they end up facing the gods. Facing the gods is a moment of triumph.
Exactly. And but it also leads to the tragedy and the twilight of the gods.
True.
Yes.
I will not deny that. But I will say that that's the only way that the golden mean could have been achieved. For as benevolent as she seemed, Mila was nevertheless still enabling this apathy from the public in Zofia. You yourself noted that the king prior was greedy and corrupt, that Fernand was one. There was so much rotten in the heart of Zofia, to quote Hamlet for a moment, except switching Zofia with Denmark. But at the same time, that doesn't necessarily mean that it was wrong. It was all bad, because guess what? Change happened. But what prompted the change? What prompted Zofia to get Alm in charge? What prompted this class struggle to even be possible in the first place? Rigel's invasion.
Which was all planned.
Not the
Which was all
gods.
planned, but
It was all planned by Duma, but it was the interaction between Duma's faithful and the armies of Duma and the philosophies of the more peaceful Zofia. If not for Rigel's influence, there would not have been that class struggle. There would not have been that idea of growth, and there would not have been a change. Rigel are the bad guys. 100% in this game. They are the aggressors, they are killing, they are doing horrible things. But through those horrible things, and through that fire, a new seed is born.
I think that's definitely true, and I feel like we both have to go soon, and I guess, to me, still, there is possibly some scenes, again, of Japan's anti-religion stuff, I guess, in their relationship with religion, because, again, Japan has had its own religion. I guess we shouldn't talk about that again, because I did an extent on that in Okami, and a little bit of Persona, but to extend on that. So definitely, if you want to know about Japan religion, check out Okami. But basically, to go short, Japan is obviously going far. Is basically the gods, in a sense, have, not for the Buddhists, but for at least in the Shintoist, in the Shinto aspect, the gods are dead, but the culture has stayed, and it's in the state it is. People want it to come back. Some people. Well, I argue for Shintoism, the ideals for that to come back, but yeah. It's sort of like that. I guess any quick comments? I mean, I guess, because I feel like anytime it's a Japanese game, and it always, in its way, will be reflected by its people. Even though it's a very Western concept. Okay, there's one Asian dude, and that's it. There's Kamui. He's Asian, that's it. I guess a quick little curveball right before we have to leave, just to, I guess, make people keep on thinking.
Yeah, I actually will say that I'm not as knowledgeable on that topic as you are, Cyber. But my main thoughts when it comes to the idea of anti-religion in Japan and the way this game relates is that it's equally a criticism of religion as it is a criticism of anti-religion. It is, once again, that idea of a golden...
Jung!
Yes, having those...
I
Sorry?
guess a little Jung. You know I always like to insert that Jung. Actually, no, Jung's pretty pro-religion, but...
Oh, yeah.
But he's against dogma. Jung is against dogma. Check out Persona for...
And that's what the game is against.
Continue.
But yeah. The ideas espoused in the game are not necessarily saying that religion is bad. Remember, Celica is the one who actually ends up facing the true threat. And it's through her faith that she ends up finding out about it and doing this. And it's her faith, it's Alm's faith that allows for Celica to be reborn. It is through faith in many ways that many of the best things in the game happen. But it's also the origin of the tragedy. It's all about understanding that we can't trust just one idea. We have to be willing to debate. We have to be willing to be open. We have to be willing to discuss. And we have to have podcasts like Philosophiel, where we just stand around here, or sit around at my case, and discuss different ideas and debate them. You know?
Free speech.
Not just agree on one thing. But yeah, the idea that there's not just... And everything for me, by the way, if you know me as a person... Pretty much everything ends up tying back to free speech eventually.
I just learned this as well.
But
I just learned this as well. Continue.
But at the end of the day, this whole game is a metaphor for what it takes to progress and what it takes to improve. Whether that be through the ideas of class struggle, faith, ideals. What is it that pushes us forward as a species? And what is it that sets us back?
Couldn't have said it any better. And I think that's basically it. Like, it took me a while to think about Echoes. Originally, Echoes was slated in Season 1. Like, eventually, shit happened. Don't need to talk about that shit, but, I didn't know, like, because again, Three Houses is a far more interesting political drama, even though, yes, one of the routes does actually do the thing right. Well, Claude's is really good, but not as good.
Oh boy, if you want to talk about Claude,
we can talk about
Claude.
We can talk about Claude. Yeah, Khalid, baby, Khalid. Yeah. Okay, but basically, Echoes, even though Echoes doesn't serve as well as a political drama, it's still, we've shown through these two of us coming together to form these beautiful ideas about this game, and I loved it. Yes, the gameplay is dated, even though Mila's turn wheel did exist, so that's kind of funny that the thing.
Hey.
What?
It's different from other Fire Emblems, but I will defend.
Okay, he'll defend the game. I didn't hate it.
I will defend Shadow of Valentia from a gameplay.
I didn't hate.
The maps were outdated.
The maps are outdated.
God, the desert maps.
I'm sorry. The freaking the Mire, the guy that can summon dragons. I just hated that.
And Jetta's immunity every 4 turns.
Either way, it's a fantastic story, and not as good as Azure Moon, but definitely was refreshing after Fates. That's the last.
Oh, I would argue that it's better than Azure Moon.
Oh. All right then.
Yeah, I know that's probably a hot take, but I'd say that it's probably my second favorite story in the Fire Emblem franchise, behind the combined storyline of Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn.
I thought you said it was behind. I thought you said it was
probably
behind.
Tied, actually, because
it was behind Three Houses.
See, Three Houses as a whole, I would probably put above Shadows of Valentia from a story perspective, but there is the issue of the fact that, frankly, Shadows of Valentia tells one complete narrative, whereas Three Houses tells 4 somewhat incomplete and unsatisfying narratives that overall come together to form a beautiful picture. You know?
The beautiful picture is what matters.
So comparing just Azure Moon to Shadows of Valentia, yeah. But you said Azure Moon was better from a story perspective. And I'd say Three Houses as a whole, sure. Azure Moon, right. Debatable.
Well,
the fact that it's even debatable, though, just shows how good Azure Moon is.
Exactly. And I still very much enjoyed Verdant Wind, but yes, it goes against Claude's character, I realize. But it still was. I like the. It gives you your main lore-doms that makes you figure out the story, and just ignore Silver Snow. That's what I did. But yeah. So basically, I guess.
When Silver Snow was your first route.
It was Black Eagles. Oh, it was.
Oh!
All right. I think maybe should we want to say anything else then? Should we?
I suppose I'm just gonna give a quick plug for my YouTube channel.
And I will happily link it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
might
link
as well.
Yeah.
I sing songs on YouTube, so if you like that brief snippet of me singing an Aristotelian thing, come on by. I try to post every Sunday. I'm not really super consistent about that sometimes because I do have, a life. Yeah, I did. But don't worry. The one I will be posting 2 by the end of this week, so it will be fun.
And next week, well, actually, I'll see when this is being recorded Monday the 14th, the day in which Fallout New Vegas episode comes out. I still need to link that to everyone. I just realized. Well, Fallout New Vegas is out, but this will be uploaded. We'll see. Maybe on this Thursday. Maybe a week from now. But yeah, this is definitely good. But either way, the next episode will be New Pokemon Snap, where I see how good is it related to actual ecology and other forms of nature documentation. Spoiler, not as much, but still always a kernel of truth, and maybe even more than you think. Alright, Alim.
You're drugging Pokemon.
This is the 3rd Pokemon episode. It's the third Pokemon episode. I've done 7 on Persona already, and there will be a lot more. Alright, Alim, this was a fantastic time. This has been Philosophy Spiel, Video Game Philosophy, and bye.
Farewell.